You know what taking one hit of DMT does to you? How about 4 in a single day? What do you think? Do I descend into madness or do I discover some hidden secrets of the universe? This is the setup. First, I take MAOIs to prolong and potentiate the DMT trip. Second, I take a hit of DMT once every hour, and I can't stress this enough. Don't do this at home. You're risking extremely overwhelming experiences, possibly horrific imagery. This is not something to be taken lightly. I took the MAOIs and settled into a meditative position. I really enjoy the mind space they create, as it really helps to ease you in what's about to happen. You get a little lightheaded, and the idea of diving face first into the cosmic creation starts to look a bit more appealing. 20 minutes later, I took the first hit. Instant awesomeness. A purple-haired fairy opened the doors to an infinitely beautiful DMT world, hustling and bustling with all kinds of magnificent creatures. Too many and too intricate to comprehend. All these DMT entities were going about their day in this splendid world of color and complex geometry. Who are they and why are they acting so casual? Whatever is going on their side of the fence, it doesn't seem to be a big deal. Just a bunch of hyperdimensional beings going about their cosmic existence. I would imagine that this is what someone who has spent their life in 2 dimensions will see if they were to take a peek at our 3-dimensional world. It would be a total madness for them. I was now being shown the ins and outs of this world. My point of view took me around the streets and I experienced this otherworldly cityscape in all of its incomprehensible glory. And it just kept going on and on. The MAOIs were definitely doing their job. However, they still didn't make it any easier on the logic. Everything I was seeing was absolutely defying the laws of reality as we know it, or at least as we assume we know it. My point of view retreated into this tunnel where I was looking at this sphere which had a multitude of screens where I could observe different parts of this DMT world all at the same time. By that time, my mammalian brain was already melting from the excess of visual information. I was running out of bandwidth. I somehow managed to turn my eyes away from the overwhelming sphere and look at the much more familiar and 2-dimensional checkered pattern that was covering the walls of the tunnel. As I was looking away from the main exhibit, I started to hear recordings of the Joe Rogan podcast talking something about China. I wasn't imagining it, and it wasn't playing from anywhere in the room that I was in. It was quite obviously a perfect reproduction of a piece of dialogue I had watched recently, and it was perfectly preserved in my consciousness. And for some reason, it was now playing like an audio file in my brain. It wasn't even any particularly interesting piece of information, just something about the geopolitical situation in China. There are 2 conclusions that I came to. First, I'm watching way too much Joe Rogan, and second, the DMT gives you an unprecedented access to your subconsciousness. But this begs the question: I am able to access a perfect audio recording of a piece of a Joe Rogan podcast, then what is the rest of the alien DMT spectacle all about? How come these 2 pieces of information share the same place in my mind? So are these DMT worlds a memory from a past life? Seems possible if they occupy the same space as recent memories, or are there something else entirely? It's pretty obvious by now that DMT gives you access into some other type of information storage. But instead of trying to understand the content of this hidden dimension, I try to focus on my relationship to it. I pay attention to my awareness and how my point of view relates to what I'm seeing. I think that this is my only chance of getting even the slightest degree of understanding. If you look around yourself, it would be really hard to explain anything in such a way that is both simple and conclusive. Take for example a desk lamp. To conclusively define what that object is, I just have to invoke the elementary particles it is made of and a description of its use that would necessarily need an explanation of the human species that requires photons to process visual information. Carl Sagan once said, if you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first create the universe. My point is, it's very hard to extract any useful information from the DMT trip, despite it being full of all kinds of imagery. Questions like, what the hell is this and how on earth is this possible, just echo emptily between the walls of your skull.